Good evening to all. Today we will learn something about the restraining of the farm animals, especially the livestock, then also uh, the poultry, and also the sheep, goat, and pigs, etc. Different domestic animals and also the animals are concerned. And we will also learn how to handle some type of the uh, small and big large animals at the same time the domestic animals also. So coming to the first thing, what is a restraining is it is an art of uh, handling of the animals. So that means we need to handle the animals in the humane method and safe techniques to limit some of or all of the animals' normal voluntary movement has to be restrained so that we should not get damaged by ourselves by improper restraint of the particular animals are concerned. Hence, there are varieties of the types of the restraints are there. Number one, the physical restraint. Number two, the chemical restraint. Three, the psychological restraint. Fourth one is the electro-immobilization. So there are basically four type of the restraints, and sometimes we may require all or only few type of the restraints are concerned. Then the purpose of restraining is especially for the examination and collection of the sample. Sometimes we need to collect the blood samples, the urine sample, the dung sample, or the rumen fluid, and many more samples. And also sometimes we need to administer some drug for the treatment of some of the disorders, and also certain manipulations are required, just like the dehorning, sometimes the amputation, shearing, etc. And the method should provide the least restraint to minimize the stress, or the animal should not feel at the stress at any cost. That is the main aim of the importance of the restraining is concerned. The animal should feel very less stressed, and also the procedure what we apply for restraint of the animal should be painless, and it ensures that one can safely examine our animal without causing the injury to the animal. At the same time, self injury should always be minimized. The doctor or the owner should always have very minimal injuries or should never have the injuries, and proper restraint of the animals is very much required because the animals do not know that a veterinarian or an owner or a examiner is going to do the beneficial effect to that particular animal. So they have got their natural defense like kicking, then also stabbing by the horns, and also sometimes the stamping, and and always they are of very fearful nature, and sometimes they may injure a great by the way of biting by the dogs and very bad kicking by some of the horses, and also the cats, especially the scratch, and all these things will be avoided if a proper restraining technique is used. And we need to focus on certain restraining techniques. And apart from this one, there are also some surgeries we need to conduct on the particular animal, and at that time we are going to do the a chemical state of that particular thing, and especially in case of shoeing, especially in case of the bullocks, we need to shoe that animal, and at the time the judging of the animals is also required, then milking, dehorning, then castration, then also the hoof trimming should be there, and clipping of the hair. All these things require the proper restraint of the animal, or else the person who is doing all these things will have a very bad damage or the injury by the different self-defense mechanism of the animals. It is unavoidable many times. Hence, the restraint should be very proper, and it should be stable, and at the same time it should not have either damage to the animal or to the person who is going to cause the restraint. And what are all the precautions while we are restraining the animals are we need to take certain precautions while restraining the animals, and suddenly without any proper precautions if you handle the animals, then once again it itself is a dangerous thing. So animals should be approached in a very calm manner, and one should get very friendly approach with that of the animal, and avoid sudden movements, some jerks as waving up of the hands and the arms especially on the animals, and get well acquainted with the animal and be friendly with the animal. Then stay alert at all times. Observe the animal's response always, and when you are siding by the stand of the side of the animal and behind the animal, be very careful, because most of the livestock are the side kickers, and also the buffaloes suddenly they jump and may give a good kick. Even though they are unable to kick, they are going to lift both limbs at the same time and get the veterinarian injured. So you need to prepare the animals properly before the restraint, and wear personal protective equipment always, maybe a hand gloves, or sometimes the especially one should have the equipment like a rope or snore or whatever it may be, depending upon the type of the animal what we are going to handle. And before the particular thing we have to have an exact strategy, how much duration the animal is going to be restrained, and what are all the procedures going to be conducted on that particular animal, the duration of the restraint, etc. Because if you restrain an animal for prolonged period on the lateral recumbency, there may be a chance of developing the bloat or tympany, or sometimes there may be a radial nerve paralysis. Hence, uh, to avoid all the secondary complication, we need to adopt a proper restraining technique. And restraining of the cattle, once again, as usual, there are varieties of the methods are there, and especially in the physical method is very cheaper method, and also the danger to the life of the animal is less. But there are once again the predefined or well-defined techniques are there. Number one is the haltering of the animal. Second one is the casting. Then the third one is the crushing the animal. Fourth one is the nose holder. Then the fifth one is the drugs. Different drugs are used for the restraint of the cattle, sheep, goat, pig, dog, cat, etc. Then, apart from this one, the animals which can give very good kick are the horses, the donkeys, the cattle. Then the local breed of the cattle are very good kickers. Hence, we should use the kick bars. And seven is the hobbles. So, and eight one is the chemical restraint method is there. So, all the techniques as single or sometimes the multiple techniques should always be used for restraining of the animals. Then here is a photograph that grabbing grappling nostril with thumb or finger, especially the fingers has to be holded on the nostril of a cattle or buffaloes for certain procedures like maybe administration of some drugs orally, etc. So this technique can also be used by siding on the left or right side of the animal with little raised, especially the head, and we should very firmly hold the nostril above the animal. But sometimes the nose threads are put at that time, simply we can hold the nose threads of the domestic animal. Then, especially sometimes we need to examine the health condition of the animal, and the examiner is sometimes, if he himself is suffering from of the disease, there is a strong possibility that his illness become may severe, because the struggling up of the animal causes more stress to the person who is going to handle. And in such case, the animals need to be handled in no sudden movement, no jerking, no sudden or racing the animals. The examiner should approach from left or right side of the animal, and always be away from the hind limbs. There are always chance that the animal may imagine that something is coming and may get a very bad kick. So then upper jaw up by a rope can be done with using an equipment which is shown in this thing, and the nose should be restrained by the equipment. Then it should be tied to a rope, and later in a travis the animals can be restrained. Then grasping the tail is also another technique, very simple technique, but hold the tail very firmly at the base of the tail and try to lift. Of course, nobody can lift a cattle, but do distract cow's attention. So this is to distract the attention. Always the tail should be held very firmly. Then one need to show that the animal should always should be hold it like both, especially both hands, the left and right hands, as far as the base of the tail here. Here you can see that the tail, we have to hold the animal very, very, very near to that of the tail base, so that this method is one of the most simple method of restraining. And sometimes the animals may be a very good kickers, and at that time while milking etc., then figure eight method of putting the, especially wind at hawk region. So the snare should be taken, and at the same time it should be put in the eight figure knot, especially in the backside limb just about the hog joint, and also fixing the animal not to kick properly. And here is another method, it's also called as the double loop method. So here the neck, we have to take a rope, then pass it over the neck, and pass it later on both side of the loin place, and pass it below the udder in the back limb, and pull the animal toward the side. And here uh, the animal get immobilized very quickly. Then the equipments number one, which is very much required, is a rope halter. This is the rope halter, or any simple rope may also be there always to hold the cattle. Then suppose if say dog, or sometimes the biting animals like sometimes the cat etc., we can use a leather muzzle, suitable leather muzzle like this. We can put it to the animal so that it cannot bite. At the same time, by holding the leather muzzle, one can restrain that particular animal. Then, apart from this one, the tape muzzle is one of the very easy technique for restraining the dogs which can bite to the veterinarian or also from the owner. So here what is going to be done is, so over the nose or the mouth, a bandage cloth or a rope, small rope, thin rope can be passed, and a knot has to be put below the nose. Then bring that particular thread above the neck and put a light knot. So this will make the animal not to open its mouth. Hence, this is also another important technique, especially to handle dogs, especially the ferocious dogs for the vaccination purpose, then deworming at the same time, the injection, etc. The dogs will suddenly bite. Hence, always, even though the owner says that my dog doesn't bite, never trust the owner, and you have to have your own confidence level. And the tape muzzle is one of the simplest technique to restrain the dog. And sometimes the hugging restraint is also there. For that, stand on the side of a dog and hold the lower part of the neck and below the nostril and mouth, then firmly hold it. That's called as the hugging. Just simply we hug the humans, like that the animals can also be hugged. This is also a good technique for holding the dog. And whenever they holding the dog, it has to be hold very firmly. Then sometimes in case of cattle, we are going to use a small thread or rope, then tie it to the front limb and pass it over the wither and pull it, so that the cattle will stand only with the three legs and it is easy to handle them in that particular situation. Then here it is the restraining up of the hind leg of the cattle using a uh, especially a rod, maybe a rod made up of especially the wood. So this can be used and pass it simply like as shown in this particular photo, so that the animal cannot kick further because one leg is holding the weight and another leg is lifted up. So this method can be used in the open areas, especially in the mobile veterinary dispensaries, wherever the veterinary doctors go without any travis to handle that animal. So such simple techniques can also be used for examining the animals and also giving some injections, etc. So there are the rope is also very useful. Even small rope can make the cattle for maximum restraint, and rope is most cheapest and we need not pay much and easily available in the village level, and also both small and large animals can be restrained by a rope. So the examiner should know some quick and easy knots, just like the veterinarian learns the different knots, especially in case of the surgery. But this is also important that the different knot techniques should be used in the rope restraint. Then, apart from this one, head and tail wrestling technique already it is told, and this technique is applied to prevent the animal from kicking or hitting the examiner with tail during the examination, because the animals have got the habit of rotating their tail, and sometimes they whenever they fear too much, at that time the tail will be rotated. At that time, if we hold the base of the tail very firmly, then it is easy to restrain that particular animal. Here is one photograph called as the head restraint technique. What is it? It is called as the halter. So here you can see that it is the halter that is especially used to restrain the head of the animal, and so that it should not move any unnecessary movement, especially during the inspection of the eye, and also sometimes the inspection of the upper body regions. We have to have such type of the restraining technique, and sometimes we need to cast the animal for different purposes. Then at that time we should be take some care that suddenly the animal should not fall down from the uh, uh, mainly while you are pulling the leg. Sometimes the animals get excited and they fall suddenly down. So slowly this technique has to be practiced. And as soon as the animal falls down, the legs should be tied with another rope. And the sheep and goat, of course, they are the small creatures. Even then, they have got sufficient energy to harm the particular handler of the animal, maybe a veterinary doctor, or sometimes the attendant, or sometimes the para-veterinary staff, or sometimes the owner himself. So especially in the here there are three photographs are there. Suppose a sheep is there, then it comes for the dispensary for taking some of the medicines by the owner. Then you have to handle it in the way that is shown in the particular picture. The left leg has to be passed below the neck region, whereas the right palm has to be passed very near to the line region or the udder region. Then sometime in the B, picture B, you can see that a gentleman is lifting the animal. Lifting the animal means whenever you lift the animals, then they lose the confidence. And at the same time, the hind legs will be there on the ground, and all the front limbs will be up. Then this is another technique, just like a person is sitting, and it is also called a setting technique, SETTING, so that it sits exactly to that of the human being, and also it should be folded with the two hands of an operator. And this technique could be useful for sometimes the vaccination or sometimes the other smaller procedures, especially in case of the sheep or goat, especially with the sheep. Then sometimes in the bulls, the bull nose rings are always used to capture a ferocious bullock. So this bull nose ring is an essential part of a big dairy, or sometimes even marginal or small dairy farmers. Here you can see that there is the snore system, especially the nose ring has to be put. So the different nose rings are being presented here. Then how the bull nose ring, it is in a different type of the shapes, etc. So depending upon the budget and at the same time the strength of a particular animal has need to be calculated, and later we can know that the animal can be restrained properly with available facility. So the bull nose ring, as the name indicates, it's put to the nose of a bull. Then it is fitted into the nostril of the bull, and the nostril is one of the sensitive part in the animals. So by putting the pressure or putting some nose ring, we can easily control them, the animals. But please see that what are all the ethical issues while putting the nose ring or nose rope to that of the animal. And apart from this one, a bull holder is also available now. So it is not going to hold the entire bull, but it will surely restrain the motility of the particular bull is concerned. Then it is adjustable, this bull nose holder, but also sometimes the weight, then total persons required, etc., vary to the greater extent. Then anti-cow kicker is in this photo. Whenever the desi or local cattle breed of the cows, we cannot trust them. Suddenly they will kick a person with very high speed. It is estimated that a gir cow kicks the human beings at the rate of 300 miles per second per minute. So it is a very big, a great speed, and one need to acquainted with putting such type of the knots, and at the same time, the anti-cow kicker should be seen by a veterinarian. Then drink water's gag is a mouth gag which is looking very similar to the photo which is shown here. This is the left side view, and this is the left jaw. Then this is also applied for the left jaw. So it has to be put to the jawbone is taken as the reference, and at the same time, the persons who are handling should also be very careful, so that sometimes they break also. So here is a photograph of a sheep, that the a sheep gag is being inserted into the sheer mouth, the mouth, and on the mouth. So these type of the Lintoned sheep gags are very specially designed in case of sheep's mouth, and also the mouth. It will keep always the mouth open, especially treatment of foot and mouth disease, etc. It will be very useful. Then apart from this one need to wear proper helmet, and that's also sometimes the proper gloves. So here you can see different type of the equipments are there which can restrain the animals. So these are all different types of the equipments, protective gloves, etc. need to be worn by a veterinarian who is going to handle a ferocious animal. Self protection is always very much required. Then apart from this one, whenever the animal is in a village condition, there are no people are there to restrain. At that time, simply a rope will make this purpose, and only one pole is available. Then you can see that by passing the rope on the entire side of the abdomen, then once again it has to be brought to the nose place, especially. Then applying a milkman's rope, always this is most common technique. How a milkman is going to restrain the local cattle. Here, one loop of the rope should be taken, and it should be put in a zigzag manner or in the number of 8. It is called as the milkman's rope, because many times the milking persons are going to handle the cattle by restraining the cattle by such technique which is easy to handle the animal. So another thing is the racing foreleg is also one of the most cheapest technology available for holding a cattle. So here put a knot to the front limb below part, and below tibia and fibula bone last time. Then suddenly make the animal to lift it front limb. At that time what happens is the animal will stand on only three limbs, hence it is unable to make much movement. So during the vaccination processes, etc., this can also be applied or such technique can also be used. Here also, the earlier we have discussed that especially the pole need to be practiced in the ground area. So take your own clothing, etc. Then take a wooden, of course, maybe a smaller size also. My size is about 10, and at that time you should put the hind leg using a pole. So especially 10 uh, square centimeters or 10 to 15 inches may be required for retain of such thing, and raising the hind leg using a pole. And if you pass the pole in between the head leg, automatically the animal is going to lift, and it is easy. And we can ensure that such animals cannot be able to kick very badly. And this is the method of restraining a recumbent animal. Even though the animal is recumbent, that doesn't mean that it cannot kick, but we need to hold it properly. At least two persons should be there. One should put their hand on the hip region, and another towards the another person hold very properly the head places, especially eardrops can also be ears can also be used for restraint of the particular animal. Then there is a another thing is called as the casting pit. Everywhere in the hospital, this is called as the casting pit, which is made up of the mud and also some part of the sand. And whenever there is a big dairy farms, etc., then they should always prefer to have the sand shed, like the show, especially in this photography. Then for casting, you want the total recumbency of the animal with using only the rope. Then the REUFS method, REUFFS method, should always be employed. Then what are all the requirements? Number one, the cow need to be castrated. It will be present in the cattle shed. Then two persons are required. Then the rope size should be 9 meters, and the procedure is whatever explained in the photographs. The high tech around the neck. First knot should be around the neck, and the second knot, as shown in this particular photography, it should be at the chest level. Hide the abdomen, then pull it very slowly. The back part has to be pulled very slowly. Then take certain precautions. The animal has to be casted always on right side, because if you go on casting the animal at right left side, which where in which the rumen is present, then there is a chance that the animals may also suffer from the bloat or timpani. Then at that time we should avoid all those techniques which are dangerous to the animals by casting it properly. So in the casting pit, this is the method how the rope is put. The rope is put on the neck on both side of the animal will be passed, like which is shown in this photograph, so that if you simply pull one leg in the end, then the person holding the front sides should put the animal back down. Then another method is in the places where sophisticated equipment like the cattle crush are there, means crushing things, especially in the wildlife. These are commonly used, but the same can be used in case of some colleges wherever the demonstration need to be given to the students. So here the below photograph, the individual pens are made with a passage, and cattle crush use a current of 9 volts so that the animal don't hit to the wall of the crush, or simply what we can call as the electric fence, which is dangerous to the animal. And many people protect their calf by putting the such type of the uh, cattle crush. Milking hobbles technique. So different uh, holdings or holders should be available. Especially it's also called as metal hobble. Remember the thing, the material which is useful, especially whenever there are no other methods are available, then a rope should always be used in a proper what do you call as a cotton rope should always be used instead of the other synthetic material made up of cotton, because nowadays it is the developing era, and we should understand what are all the domestic things that can be done by the doorstep of the farmer. Then this is also the other techniques, and every day we need to catch so many animals. But we are facing a lot of problem in restraining them. Sometimes they come to clinic, or sometimes directly they will come to searching a veterinary doctor. Then apart from this one, we need to wear a very good apron, then gloves, proper glovesing, then also the mask, because many times the disease may be zoonotic importance. Hence one need to wear the gumboots, because sometimes the limbs of the animals may be put on the foot of a person who is going to restrain the animal and cause the severe injury. Hence, better to use all such equipments. Then haltering means, here the method is explained in such a way that 12 to 15 feet length of half inch three stranded rope as shown in the photo need to be taken. Then any type of the rope from cotton to nylon will do the same trick. However, our choice depends upon the strength needed, durability required, and price of the rope is also the matter. So we need to select a very good restraining rope always. Then there are once again advantages and disadvantages of this putting the halter. Number one, the advantages are the rope halters. Always they are no iron part like buckles or rings for attaching to the rope, whereas the other halter is having one of the disadvantage of the halter might get caught on an object and injures the animal sometime. So that's also another disadvantage of rope technique. And one can easily control the animal by this technique, but halters must be placed concurrently to the animals, or otherwise they will do more harm than the good. So whenever you are restraining the animal, hold it very very firmly, and improper handling also become very dangerous, especially the hefty bullocks in northern part of the Karnataka, like the Amrit Mahal, Khilar, and many other animals. So one need to know the technique of using this particular halter, then it is also cheap, then effective, very effective and easily going to use in the field conditions. Whereas too much pressure on that halter leads to the injuries to the animal, especially. So we should take care of such things, and halters must be placed in a correct manner, or there are called as the designated manners should always be there. And the second thing is halters must be placed correctly, or else they will cause lot of injury. Then coming to the restraint of the smaller and the smaller animal, of course, it is easier than that of the large animal because the weight is also less, and sometimes the animals will be friendly other than few of the domesticated animal, and both of the front limbs should be held by a qualified person or an attendant or who is acquainted with such technique. So the another thing is what you are sharing is the hoop trimming will need always be sure hoop trimming method. Then sometimes there are better methods to hold the birds, because sometimes the birds may peck very badly, then they may cause the scratch injuries because the nails in the bird are very strong enough. Whereas another method to use, especially for immobilization of the bird, is to place one hand and the chest. Please note down this photograph, especially how it need to be done. And sometimes the photos may be displayed, and you need to give some answer to the people if the animal is damaged. So, and sometimes the halter itself may cause injury to the animal, and at that time we will need to remove the halter and treat it with suitable antibiotics, etc. Then another method is casting. So this refers to a technique in which one is going to use the rope as restraining tool. Then make large animals lie down easily and become recombinant with minimum effects. But the surgeries, etc., without any antibiotic, these analgesics or the agents which cause numbness cannot be used here. Then apart from this one, there are two methods are there. The number one is the roughs method, REUFs method. Then the second method is crisscross method, crisscross, or the eight method. We also going to cross this particular method. Then we need to cast the cow several times for becoming the doctor who is examining the animal, and also sometimes you may need to go very near to the animal and catch hold of the animal, then put the vein to the jugular furrow, because we know that there are a lot of this especially restraining techniques are there. And here is the Riof's method of restraining there. Then go slowly, especially while reading of the different parts, especially your energy is very much required in future also. So the Burles is another thing is the Burley's technique of putting the rope. It is already shown that the feet of rope required for the both the methods. We should have a cotton rope or sometimes which is made up of the waste material from a coconut garden. Then the front leg hobble. This method is the front leg is raised for examination or it is for also the treatment of the animal. When one need to put a male and female, especially in sheep advisory, uh, we can see that the males are separated from that of the female, or else they will have a lot of quarrel in between them. And this treatment of restraint can be used to make a cow stand still and the avoid one need to avoid sometimes the kicking and making the owner or the animal whatever it may be stamping those animals. So the rope is used from ancient era. Still, it is there because in such thing we are going to have the much more easier techniques. So in this method, the front leg is raised for examination, maybe foot and mouth disease or foot rot, etc. In such situation, one need to examining the animal and also putting sometimes the bandage. So the rope should be used from a loop other than and other end is passed over the neck and where it should be held by an assistant to be shared with so that it can be useful to the vets. Then this is the hobble. Hobble is just like our belt type structure. Sometimes depending upon the animal size, etc., we need to select the especially the rope which is most suitable to our farming industry. Then next is the chemical restraint. Whenever all the methods fail and found to be comfortable, at that time we need to procure this thing. So also the psychopharmacological technique. This is also known as the psychopharmacological techniques, and I am and chemical restraint has to be restricted only during the situations like whereas sometimes the psychiatric settings should uh, unruly patient in who are in interfering with their food or care or otherwise buffalo or this harmful especially sometimes the animals may be harmful to themselves and may cause uh, to the other people which are who are surrounding them and get a bad this thing. So the sometimes the animal do not like the bad odor or smell. At that time we need to make the persons who are holding the animals to be more, especially more efficient in handling the animal. Then anti-kicking devices are already in the market, but you can also prepare your own anti-kicking device. Then the nose lead technique is one of the very simple technique using a metal ring is fixed between the walls of the nostril, which contains sensitive tissues and restrain the animal from unnecessary movements. Here you can see that the animal is having holded with simply the nose. And coming to the sheep and goat, smaller animal, the restraining techniques are somehow different, and you can see that they can be put in a trough, then can be approached from the side of that particular animal. And the sheep can be hold by standing on some side, and the patting the wool also, the sheep need to be restrained properly, then set the animal and restraining above the equidae family. So equines are one of the very good kickers. So it is always necessary to opt for the right restraint technology in holding the horses, and it's always better to approach them for the left side. Don't approach the animal from suddenly from front, and always produce a proper sound, especially the horse can recognize you. So there are three main techniques for the restraint of a horse: the physical, the verbal, then chemical also. So coming to the horse restraining techniques, especially the same thing which holds good in case of the cattle: the halters and lead rope, the chain or nose, and also the lip, then twitching with a device, then lifting lamb and stocks. So these are all the techniques for physical restraints of a horse. Then halter and lead rope, a physical restraint should never be attempted without a halter. So one should not handle the animals without the halters, especially here the rope is passed in between, especially both sides of the mouth part, then tie it on the back part. So never wrap around the hand of your own or any other body part. Then another thing is, never tie the horse unless you know it is accustomed for being tied. The reason why is, if you the horse is not peculiar and do not trust you that every day you are not going to give the food, etc., then at that time it may attack on a human being. Then the restraining the sheep for hoof trimming, etc., can be done, and also for the oral examination and different type of the procedure to be conducted on the sheep. And it is also called as eight shepherds crew. Here you can see that eight shepherds crew, and the ninth one is the gramble, such type of the restraining, both legs are put on the other both side of the particularly legs. Then restraining the goat. So the goats always need to be restrained, and there are methods of restraining up of the goats, and this is very much required for vaccination and also the veterinary aid, and also for some time the putting a tag in case of a government aided schemes. Then control animal without stressing much and hold the kid between the knees, then you say shoot or the for the manual animal, and simply this type of the techniques can also be adopted for such animals. Then many times we need to trim the hoof of the small animal and also the large animal. So this hoop trimming can be best done in squeeze chute by positioning or tying the animal next to a wall or fence. The person should face the animal tail, leans down and picks up by the front leg, then restrain. Here you can see the person is putting some restraint and doing some procedure. So for trimming the back hooves, the hind legs should be brought back straight behind the goat. Then sometimes the horses are also uh, chained over nose and also lip. So the chain over the nose provides additional control, and chain or lips are more severe, often applied for breeding stallions. Twitching with hand. Hands are used to twitch the horse for restraining and can be either neck twitch, the ear twitch, or the nose twitch. All these things can be used in a horse. So this is the method how the twitching devices can be used, especially in case of the animals, especially the horse. And never put the switch device on the ears, and lifting the limbs like this, the animal's hoof should be lifted by the side of standing on the side of that particular animal. Then especially the donkeys need to be restrained with proper thing because they kick very badly. Then a proper knots like this particular thing are put, and the rope need to be passed on the abdomen place. Then holding a restrict technique of the poultry, of course, uh, even though they are not the big creatures, but proper holding is very much required. And sometimes if you hold them very with a lot of grip, etc., the animal may get collapsed there also. So we need to hold the chicken very properly. Then softly, then to avoid the choke and aspiration crush. Then the birds can be hold by holding the legs, and also the wings should be properly restrained. Camels. Yes, the camels are the large animals. Then they have got different type of the techniques for restraint. The camel is able to kick or strike in any direction. Hence, the camel should be maintained on sternal recumbency only, or else it will cause lot of injury anytime. Then there are two main types of the restraining: physical restraining and chemical restraining is there. Then physical restraining is always the halter, body harness, nose plugs, and the strokes or the hobbles can also be put. Here you can see that the rope halter can be put on the mouth part of the animal and it can be pulled. Whereas the another thing is the zalazine is a drug which can be used in many type of the animals for proper sedation, and it utilizes especially the cattle, buffalo, horses. So, but the thing is, one should be very careful, especially the dosages. For example, the other drugs can also be used are butorphanol, ditobidine, then metomidine. All these drugs can be used. Then the ketamine can also be used for restraint of the animal. Then advantages of this restraining is to prevent the animal from injury, safety of the animal welfare issues, proper controlling for the trainers. Then disadvantage of restraining is it is against some equipments. They cause lot of injuries to the animal, and unprotected equipment can result in transfer of many diseases that can affect meat, milk, etc. of the animal. And during restraining, if animal gets hyper, then it can also cause serious injuries to it and also to the restrainers. So the animals are not advocated for restraining, while the animals may cause serious damage to the person controlling it. And the sheep can be easily restrained by holding the neck with one arm and placing the other arm around the rump region. The rear end may also be controlled by placing an arm over the neck. Then this is another method where in which the sheep need to be put in a corner, straddling the animal between the handler's leg. Then lambs, very small lambs, can be restrained by placing one hand under the body and in between the forelimbs to support the sternum and other hand around the neck. Then this is the method for restraint of the lamb for castration and tail docking whenever it is required. Both the hind limbs should be held very firmly. Then the tail need to be cut properly or the castration can also be done. Then this is the method of holding the goats, especially the beard and neck. Then there are certain references how you can go further with holding that particularly the thing. And thanks for being with me for about the 1 hour, 1 hour and 12 minutes. And thanks a lot for